Thank you, Chairperson. When the curtain falls on the one-party reign of the ANC, this government will be measured on how it treated its most vulnerable. The ANC's treatment of learners is shocking, to say the least. The greatest failure of the Department of Basic Education in the last decade is its inability to provide our learners with decent sanitation. Not only because of the tragedy of losing 2 learners who died and drowned in a pit latrine, but because each and every president since the dawn of democracy sat on that seat and promised to eradicate pit toilet. The most profound speech was made in 2004 by then President Thabo Mbeki, who said, open quote, "By the end of this financial year, we shall ensure that there is no learner and student learning under a tree, mud school, or any dangerous conditions that expose learners and teachers to these elements," close quote. That was 15 years ago, Mr. President. Last year, President Ramaphosa, you told us all our city projects will be finished by March 2019. It was a populist propaganda then, it's a populist propaganda now. And the reason was always one, to garner votes. Just like you're trying to garner votes when you talk about giving out tablets. Mr. President, we need toilets now, not tablets. We need teachers now, not tablets. We need textbooks now, not tablets. We need you to deal with SATU now, not tablets. Show leadership. Be resolute with SATU. The Minister Angie Motshekga will thank you for it. Mr. President, you announced that 699 schools were provided with safe and adequate sanitation since the launch of the SAFE initiative in June last year. How did you pull that miracle in 7 months with a fraction of the budget on sanitation? We need specifics. When, where, how, by whom? Give us the price tag, because the toilets in Nyola Primary School in Lusikisiki in the Eastern Cape cost 4.5 million for 9 pit toilets. Remember, also, don't be shocked, 7.2 billion rand was taken from school infrastructure, moved to higher education. Now, apparently, there's another budget cut on the second-year midterm budget. But according to you, we need tablets. It is really tablets for learners, or you want to line the ANC pockets? Where are your priorities, Mr. President? You say you care about education. We just celebrated 78% rate in matric, but actually the real pass rate is 37.6%. Because we have 52% of learners who dropped off the system. The multi-examination opportunity policy intended to advantage learners is bound to be exploited by the teachers, by the principal, by the provinces. As we sit here, Limpopo has about 23% of progress learners, the highest in the country. And the Cape and Western Cape sits on a mere 6.3, the lowest in the country for the last 2 years. But the ANC's disdain for South Africans is not only limited to the children of our country. The distribution of social grants has all but collapsed under the mismanagement and the corruption in the Department of Social Development. South Africans eventually had to turn to the courts to prevent Minister Dlamini from halting social grant payments through her dodgy deals with CPS. Why didn't you fire the minister, Mr. President? You recently commended the Department of Social Development for complying with Constitutional Court order. When do you congratulate the government for following the law? You should have begun with a sincere apology to the millions of South Africans that wait in queues for hours on end, uncertain whether they'll be able to feed their children. South Africa, if you ever needed an indication of how little the ANC thinks of the plight of women in our country, it is this. The president rewarded the person who destroyed our social grant system by making her the Minister of Women. In her, we are unlikely to find the champion of women that South Africans are so desperately in need of. You have wonderful plans and summits to tackle gender-based violence, but on the ground, the government actively contributes to a risk of women that women face daily. In the specialist units that deal with sexual offenses, family violence, the most vulnerable victims of such crimes I have 1 minute.
Go on, honorable member.
Okay. It's not, okay, is it working now? Okay. The most vulnerable victims of such crimes were exposed to even more criminals. The DA uncovered that 57 officers with senior criminals records, including culpable homicide and assault, are working in the SAPS, FCS units. That is typical of the ANC government. And this is hardly surprising, considering how the ANC backed the deputy minister caught on camera assaulting a woman. In contrast, the DA has always made sure that the protection and the rights of the people comes first, and quality service delivery at the center of everything we do. The DA provides the best quality education in the country, but the DBEs, that is according to the Department of Education's own inclusive bucket measure. Just ask the minister. When the Western Cape has run a world-class infrastructure project, which is why in the Western Cape, there is no school in the province that is without safe sanitation.
Honorable member,
The Western Cape...
I regret your time has expired.
But